Hello everyone, I am Muddy Dragon and welcome back to Night Call. We're on night 2. Let's see how things go. You open one eye. For a second there, you hoped the evidence board was just a dream too, but you can make it out in the shadows. You get up quickly, and a few minutes later, you're outside of your studio. Here we are, night 2, 22:36. No newspapers available, let's listen to the radio. Your finger is poised in front of the car radio. You're trying to find something to listen to. Let's go for the news. You happen upon the nighttime news. After a few depressing headlines, the anchor announces the discovery of Roman ruins on the Ildila site. Don't get me started, don't know. Just a few meters from Notre Dame Cathedral. They're apparently from an old temple built for an unknown goddess, probably something to do with the scene. The saying. Oh, never mind. As soon as the news is over, you turn the radio off so that the cab is silent again. Okay, we've listened to the news. That wasted a fair bit of time. Here we go. Here's our first suspect. Only one showing up. Oh, there's one over there as well. It's a short drive. It's only going to give me €10, but let's take this ride. Let's take the job. You immediately recognise the passenger who just climbed to the back of your cab. His face has been plastered all over the news for the last few weeks. He's a lawyer who is representing a terrorist. He gives you an address and you start driving. He holds your gaze in the rearview mirror, like he's trying to read your mind. You drive across a virtually empty Paris. Behind you, the lawyer nervously consults his notes. Everything all right? He answers without looking up. Yes. You get the message and leave him alone. You continue driving without saying a word. Your passenger mutters. Why did he say that to the cops? He's not taking this seriously. Doesn't get it. Idiot. There again. He says it again. Is he contradicting himself or just... You glance in your mirror. The lawyer looks like a smaller version of himself. Sure everything's alright? He closes his eyes and remains silent for a while. You see him start to break. I can't take this anymore. He takes a deep breath. He loses control of his voice. This guy's a real asshole. He's not just a monster, he's a total idiot. Tears form at the corners of his eyes. I've never seen such a moronic defendant. You know what it's like to defend a moron? You know what it's like to get only 3 hours of sleep a night so you can defend a fucking moron? Do you have any idea? He yells so loudly, the windows shake. I'm sorry. When he answers, his voice is icy cold. No need to apologise. There's nothing to be sorry about. He pauses barely, just the time to take a deep breath. Jesus effing Christ already. He kicks the seat in front of him. Jesus. He calms himself down. He steadies his breath. I'm the only one who agreed to it. I actually fought to represent him. It's my own damn fault. I'm being dragged through the mud. He raises his hand, snickers. Yeah, I admit it. At first, I thought it was pretty great. Being on TV, all the interviews, journalists, asking my opinion about everything. I shook so many hands, said so many words, sentences, yet I actually said nothing. When I worked in the hood, not a single person cared about my work. And now, in 5 hours, I have to be on the radio. In seven on TV. He pauses, breathes. His voice sounds further and further away. You need to try and calm down. I don't think I should have said that one. I don't even know what that means anymore. Actually, it's simple. I almost never sleep. When I lie in bed, I stare at the ceiling and go over the evidence in my head. He sits up. It's barbaric, disgusting, so horrific. It's almost unreal. He lets out a sigh from somewhere deep in his body. And then I discover my client bought nails, the nails that were in the bombs and the corner market, and he kept the receipt. He kept the fucking receipt, folded it in half and slipped it into his wallet. That's what I see when I close my eyes. Disemboweled bodies and a receipt for €2 worth of nails. Why? He raises his voice quite high. Why, for God's sake? He thought he could expense it when he got to heaven. He pauses. So stupid and so dangerous. He disgusts me. He revolts me. Well, why defend him then? Because everyone has a right to an attorney. Everyone, without exception. Otherwise, justice is no longer just. His fit of rage subsides. His fingers are shaking. When I signed on, I thought I'd be representing someone crazy, and I find out he's just a moron who's played too many video games. The guy's never even read a holy book they used to justify their so-called acts of martyrdom. He read a few passages online. Passages online. Do you have any idea what a complete moron he is? He chuckles. I'm sorry. I am truly sorry. I shouldn't have said all that. He takes a deep breath. I don't have anyone else to talk with about it. All the other lawyers avoid me like the plague. My mother can't understand why I'm doing this. She's so ashamed. She went back to Algeria. He is shaking. I get the shame. What I don't get is when people just lump things together. I am not a terrorist. I am not a murderer. No one else would do it. Yeah, so what? Do I get a prize? No, I get spit on every day. Why? For a moron. We could hang him right here, right now, and no one, I'm telling you, would shed a tear. He stays quiet for a moment, catches your gaze. That's why I keep doing this. He slows his breathing. For equality. Our country was founded on it. These rights have been abused far too often for me to look the other way. His anger seems to be lifting. The taxi has almost reached his destination. In the back seat, the lawyer is much calmer. His voice is soft. I need to be reminded of this. This will serve as a lesson. He looks at you in the mirror and bores into you with his gaze. It's odd, isn't it? That I ran into you tonight. I mean, as if. No, forget it. You pull over. He pays his fare. Wait, don't take this wrong way, but... He hands you another bill. Here, this is for you, for listening, for hearing what I had to say. Yeah, take it. You slide the bill into your pocket. He looks relieved, gathers his belongings strewn across the back seat. As he's getting out of the cab, you realise he left an envelope behind. For a second, one tiny second, you hesitate. It could be something important. I'll say nothing. I might meet him again at some point. He gets out of the taxi, walks a few steps away and turns around to wave at you before entering a bistro. You turn around and grab the envelope your suspect left behind. You'll open it when you get home tonight. You drive off. Made a little bit, not a whole lot. Let's go find someone else. Okay, let's go get this guy next, who's another suspect of ours. The door opens, it's Herv. He meets you with his bizarre verbal tick as usual. How's it going? Going. Hi, Herv. You start the engine. Your passenger keeps looking over his shoulder, clearly worried. Is everything okay, Herv? Yeah, sure, no worries. His voice trails off. He seems to be collecting himself. It's just, there's a cop on my tail. A cop? Has anybody come round asking about me? What do you mean? You know, like from the crime squad. No, nobody's been talking to me about you. That guy's been driving me crazy, asking all these questions, digging up my past. You know what I mean. Digging up your past? Like my old girlfriends and stuff. Where I used to live, why I left the shelter. At first, I thought it was the killer. You know, the serial killer. That he was after me. Why would he be after you? Because I saw his face. He pauses, just enough time for your brain to process the information. You gotta look at the judge. Your passenger gives you a funny smile. I saw him in profile. Mile. His profile or his face? Profile. But what's the difference? He was like 50 feet away from him, man. I was like sleeping in the alley just across the street from where, well, you know, he killed his last victim. My stomach hurt. I couldn't sleep, and you know, I saw him in profile. He had this weird way of walking, sort of hunched over as if he were tired. That's all. Yeah, that's all I saw. He had black gloves and the streets were dark. I didn't see anything else. He's staring at you. But why do you care, man? I'm just curious is all, I reckon. I was just asking. Just curious is all. Yeah, well, if that cop's come round again, you tell him to go fuck off. I'm not going to tell the police anything, not a damn thing. A note of anger has crept back into his voice. Goddamn cops. They're never there when you need them. I sure as hell ain't going to help. Yelp. They can go kick sick. He looks away, furious. You keep quiet and focus on the road. All of a sudden, your passenger gives the seat back in front of him a thump. Hey, stop right here. Here, near. You slow down and pull over as soon as you can. Okay, I'm out of here. Is everything all right? Hey, wait. Don't worry about it. It's better for you this way, believe me. The door opens and closes with the her vanishes into the darkness. Of course, another free fare for him. You open the window on your side. You're dying for a cigarette. To relieve the pressure. To calm your racing heart. To take a deep breath, then drive. You take a deep breath, then drive away. Right, well, that's interesting turn of events. He says the guy was hunched over as if he was tired. Now, the only person that we know of who is going to be tired is the lawyer. But I still don't believe it to be the lawyer. I still believe it's the old guy. Now, from here, who do we go to? I'll go for this one. Alicia Cliffs. My poetry needs a car ride. The woman getting into a cab looks frantic. Alicia. I've lost my inspiration. Every last drop of it. Come on, drive. You throw her very skeptical looks in the rearview mirror. I'll tell you when to stop. I have to. I am seeing a stream dead. A billabong. She stops talking. You hear a low guttural sound coming from her throat. A mantra. Billabong? Billabong. I must find a billabong. What's that? She inhales, closes her eyes and focuses. Her voice drops, becomes more intense. A billabong, a dead river. There's one right below us. Drive, I say. Start driving. You start driving. A few minutes go by before you realise your passenger is making a guttural sound. The sound resonates with the hum of the engine. Once in a while she changes notes, modulating and playing with the harmonics. Suddenly she shouts, "Turn left!" Then abruptly, as if she were following a path to following a path she alone could see. Go down the boulevard. You drive for a few minutes, aimlessly. In back, your passenger is still singing. The meter is running. The kind of ride that puts you out of sorts. Who knows when it will end? Your passenger squeals. Stop, right here. Not a bit further. You brake. Yes. Yes. She whistles a high, loud note. The billabong runs just underneath us. Its water flows no more. The black stream from my from my vagina has stopped short. Oh, that's funny. That's great. The rumble of revelation. The water flows no more. All that remains is to clear away the remains. You stop the engine. Oh my gosh. That was just too funny. Silence fills the cab. Your passenger's low voice and the scratch of her pencil on the paper are hypnotizing. How many rivers have run dry? The river has left its bed and flows no more. You feel something vibrate beneath you. Probably the metro. How I long to sculpt the clay and the mud of life in this water that flows no longer. Except the metro doesn't run this late at night. I plunge my calves into the water that flows no longer. I am calmed and refreshed by its coolness. She squeals so loudly it makes you jump. She then returns to a simpler, more natural tone. Thank you. This poem has been years in the making. I was only missing a few lines until tonight. I sensed the billabong I needed while walking down the street, like a charon. A muse. She opens her eyes. You. When you're driving alone at night like this, what moves you the most? All the people who don't. The lack of silence. Your passenger enters a new trance-like state. Once again, she starts making the guttural sound. The city speaks to us. Even in the dead of night, garages hum, metros vibrate, TVs crackle, street lamps flicker. Sodium lights. As you drive, it's actually your ears that are making the steering wheel turn. Let us drive once more into the water that flows no longer. Listen closely. The singing stream is still there. She takes a moment to bask in the words she has just spoken. A second later, she has left the cab. I knew I'd find my inspiration on that path to the billabong. She freezes. Your colour is marble or thick fuck it. That word. Never forget this. She says nothing more, passes you her fare through the window and walks away with purpose. You sigh and drive away. Made a bit of money, didn't even have to do the full journey. Your next passenger is waiting on the sidewalk with an enormous suitcase next to him. You get out of the cab, pick up the suitcase, which must weigh 45 kilos at the very least, and put it in the trunk. You get back in with your passenger close on your heels. The door slams shut. You turn the key in the ignition and look up at your passenger. Charles de Gaulle, right? He nods, and you start driving. It's still pretty early to be getting on a plane. He must be the type that likes to get there well ahead of time. Japanese, Chinese, you're not sure. You smile. Tourists always have such a magical image of Paris. There's almost no traffic, and you're able to drive at a decent speed. Behind you, in the rearview mirror, you can see the tip of the Eiffel Tower start to appear. Eiffel Tower? He smirks. His tone leads you to believe he thinks it's ugly. A few words you know in English get you nowhere with your passenger. Still speaking in his language, whatever he's saying. Okay, it's Japanese. You're sure now? If anyone's able to, if anyone knows what he's actually saying. I could Google. He imitates the sound of a plane taking off. You think you may have recognized the name of the airport. Airport? Airport. He nods. He turns away so vehemently, you understand he wants to be left in peace. He wants calm and silence. You hear him mumbling to himself. His voice is deep and heavy. He takes a short pause to swallow his spit. Something's going on here. Well, he's not. He's on the way to the airport, but we don't know which. Well, is it probably only how many airports are there out there in Paris? You like Paris? He ignores you and keeps mumbling. The tone of his voice makes you think he's making a list of all the things he hated. He mumbles on and on. This is an interesting change. A passenger who doesn't speak English or French or any, just Japanese. He's made that sound before. The third time, you immediately recognize the word. Versailles. Versailles. He bursts out laughing. This could be a long trip. He glances at you. You don't understand. You get the impression he wants. He wants you to repeat what he's saying. Repeat. Try it. We're going to have a try. He nods. So we attempt to. He falls back into his seat. His eyes close. He doesn't want to speak to you anymore. You've had passengers who didn't speak any French before, but this one seems furious. Maybe he didn't like Paris. Maybe he prefers Tokyo. You smile. For just a second, you imagine yourself as a taxi driver in Tokyo. Businessmen, well-dressed high schoolers, those Japanese mobsters. What are they called again? Yakuza. What do you call the Japanese mafia again? He doesn't budge. He lets out a groan. Mafia. Groan. You recognise the word. Yes, mafia. A minute goes by. He sits up. Yakuza, isn't it? He stares at you. Yakuza, exactly. He starts laughing slowly at first, then quite loudly. He shuts his eyes again. You keep driving. You think about the movie you saw during your hospital stay. A black American soldier on the run who starts hanging out with some sort of bum who was a huge jazz fan. It was a singular movie, incredible. It made a real impression on you. The title was, no, you can't remember the title, and how could you possibly describe it to your passenger? Impossible. What a shame you can't speak his language. What a shame not to understand him, not to be able to talk to him about it. You sigh. Maybe later you'll have time to learn Japanese. It's probably hard. Not the same alphabet, not the same letters, but then again, your parents could read in Arabic and write in French. So you could too. Yes, later. You'll have time. And then here you are at the airport. A heap of ramps and tunnels brings you to the drop-off zone. You pull to a stop and your client wakes up. He notices the airport, a few taxis, your own fatigue. He starts talking peacefully in a soft voice. My gosh. He shakes his head. Okay. He pays his fare with a twinge of shame. You get out of your taxi and help him get his suitcase out of the trunk. It weighs a ton. He thanks you with a sad look of defeat. He grabs onto your sleeve as you try to get back into your car. You nod, very slowly. I do not understand. He pauses for a second. Even if he doesn't understand the words, he understood your tone. When he starts speaking again, his voice is monotone and completely void of emotion. Something inside you resonates, like you understood what he just said. He lost someone, his wife maybe. He looks upset. He shakes his head. He should have come with someone. If only you could understand him. He bows. When he straightens up, his eyes are misty. You don't know why, but it seems normal to reply, "You're welcome." He walks away with his huge suitcase. When he's almost to the doors, he stops and turns around. You practically jump. He just said the word Yakuza. Yakuza. He bursts out laughing. He walks into the airport. The sliding glass doors close behind him. You start to realise the airport is waking up all around you. A woman who must have been a Viking in another life is pushing a floor waxer across the tiles into the entryway, just below the heating vents. A fellow driver waves as he's leaving the drop-off zone. A plane, maybe the first one of the day, appears in the sky. You get back in the taxi. For a minute, you grab your freezing hands together to warm them up. You rub your freezing hands together and warm them up. Just a few seconds before driving off. Made a little bit on that one. Time to go home. We also need to get some fuel in this vehicle and bugger off home. Where's some fuel and get that and head home. You pull over and stop at a gas station. Not a soul in sight. The fluorescent lights irritate your eyes, and the smell of pee is wafting up from the space in between the pumps. Self-service here. You pay directly at the pump. The mini-mart over there, it must sell newspapers. The person behind the counter must see and hear things. Might be worth asking a couple of questions. This place makes you nervous. All you want is to get back into your warm cab. Let's go in. You walk into the mini-mart. Behind the counter, a student doing his homework lazily raises his head. Yeah? Let's see. Talk with him. Cash. Buy a scratch card. Why not? Let's buy a scratch card. I'm guessing that means lose. No go. Come back tomorrow. Let's buy this. Talk with him. So we've got a newspaper. It's a bit out of date, you know, because it's so late in the day. The serial killer's business is crazy. The clerk cuts you off, pointing an angry finger at the newspaper on display in front of him. Have you seen how much the police suck at catching him? You smile and let him keep talking. A new clue is available. Please come back, Sue. The clerk is still in the middle of his sentence when you leave the shop. Interesting, we've got a full tank. Let's head back home. You get in your taxi and drive away. You pull a newspaper out of your glove compartment and start leafing through it. Eventually, something grabs your eye. You glance at a critique of Great Alicia Cliff's latest collection of poetry. The critic seems convinced but it's curious to know what might have inspired her to write this masterpiece. You turn the page and stop. You've read about a third of the newspaper. Keep going. You stop reading and go back a few pages. You thought you saw something. It's an article about the recent police leaks incident that retracts another data leak. 2 years ago, a bunch of confidential police documents were accidentally released. Documents about Ronan Besson, Charles Beaugrain, and Simon, the judge's first 3 victims. Intriguing. You only have a third left to read. Read the whole thing. As soon as you get to the page, you stop. Your instinct tells you to look at. It's a rather enthusiastic article about a bar named Napo, who cares? You make note of the information with interest. In your line of work, that kind of thing can always come in handy. You shut the paper. It'll end up in the trash tonight. If you remember it's there. Otherwise, it will spend the rest of its days in your glove compartment. At the foot of your front door, just behind a drain pipe, you notice an envelope. It's thick and heavy. You can just make out your name, written in thick black marker on the front. Your real name. You take a deep breath and go inside. In the envelope, you find more information, just as Busset promised. You lay them on the table. You take a few minutes to update your board with your new clues. Your neighbour flushes the toilet. Out of the corner of your eye, you can see the pipes shake. You glance at your bed and get to work. This is Salim's file, stolen from him. Okay, and this is a picture from the crime scene. There's not enough time. Great. The information for Paul here, so we've got it all lined up on the left there. It says the killer is wearing black gloves. So we've got the weapon, we've got the height, which goes to every person here. The thing that goes with Salim, they've got the black gloves, we've got the height, we've got the message about justice, and he was talking about justice in the car, but of course, he's a lawyer. He's going to be involved with like the whole justice thing and believes in it all. And also, Salim also investigating the first 3 victims. So of course that makes him a bit more of a suspect. It's still looking like this guy, because they mentioned that he was like hunched over as if he was tired. I would have said this guy because he's quite old. So yeah, that makes sense for him to be more hunched over. This guy hunched over because he's tired makes sense because he works long hours and doesn't get much sleep. So that also makes sense to be him as well. So let's end the night and end this episode as well. Thank you all for watching. If you're new here, please consider subscribing to the channel, smash like and hit that bell button to be informed whenever I bring out a new episode. And I'll see you all again next time. Bye for now.